Welcome to Hardback Life. It's time for stories, sass, and strong opinions. Let's turn the page. I'm Rebecca, and this week, Cassie and I's schedules just didn't work. And next week, it's not going to work either. So we're going to be by ourselves for a little bit before we come back together. It's really my fault because I'm finishing my graduate program. So today, I brought Sarah, and she's on camera. Say hi, Sarah.
Hi, everybody.
The last couple times, she's been a picture of a person in a sheet looking like a ghost. And there was one other one. It was like a funny face made out of fruits and vegetables.
That's me,
So,
ghostly and fruity and vegetable-y.
well, I would just like Cassie to know when she listens to this that I'm really not used to doing the intro and I didn't like it. So we need to get our schedules back on track. Well, we always start with what we're reading. So Sarah, what are you reading?
I am currently reading one called The Wilderness. It was a book that was on Barack Obama's best read list, and I always find a couple of
Oh,
his are really good. And it's great. It's about women who met in the early 2000s and have now become like moms and, older, and they're in their 40s and they're dealing with things. And it's like the whole path from like when you're 18 to when you're 45, which is really where I am right now. So it's good.
Sarah
I highly
reads
recommend.
Sarah reads real people books. Sarah doesn't read fairy smut.
I don't. I don't.
Actually, you would be so proud. I was going through some of the lists on Goodreads and I pulled a couple for my TBR that are like contemporary fiction. Actually, the funnest one that I was going to tell you about is a story about a 77-year-old woman who goes into a care facility.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like about all the things she doesn't expect. But what happens is the summary says she doesn't expect to fall in love and she doesn't expect to
Nice.
become pregnant. And so it's basically like everybody starts to come in and tell her what she should and shouldn't do. And so it's basically kind of trying to confront another level of womanhood and rights and all that stuff. How feasible is it that a 77-year-old woman could get pregnant? That's what I want to know.
I can't imagine it's more than like 0.00001%.
Let me look up the book and what it's called. And my TBR list is so long, so I just have to like keep scrolling until I get to the bottom. At 77, Pepper Mills is too old to be a stranger in a strange land. She didn't choose the Vista View retirement community of Austin, Texas. But when she grudgingly moves in, she not only makes new friends, she falls in love, then exhaustion, vomiting, confusion. Her children and grandchildren worry it's cancer, dementia, or a stroke. But a raft of tests later, the news is even more shocking that she's pregnant. Once word gets out, everyone wants a piece of her, the press and the paparazzi, activists, and medical researchers all descending on Vista View as Pepper tries to determine her next move.
Interesting.
It's called Enormous Wings. It's by Lori Frankel.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. The one who wrote the Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. Or no.
Yes.
Is that her? No, it's
No.
This Is How It Always Is. That's what she wrote.
Yes. Yes.
That one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's by her. It's not out yet though. I don't know. Oh, it comes out May 5th. So
Nice.
soon.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and I picked some other ones too. You would be very proud. I picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 contemporary fictions.
Nicely done.
I think I'm in my romance and contemporary fiction era.
I love that for you.
Well, on the topic, so I called Sarah this afternoon and I was like, I'm doing a solo episode and here's the topic. Do you want to get on and have some opinions about said topic? And we know that Sarah has some leverage on some things because she's a clinical mental health professional. So she gets to come on here and flex her degree. And what she says isn't a crock of crap. So the topic today is self-help books and smut. And I know that might sound really weird, but I happened upon this research study back, I don't know, last year in grad school, maybe last semester, I don't remember. And it was talking about the benefits of smut versus self-help. And it was like, put down the self-help, pick up the smut. And so I decided that I wanted to talk about those two genres and the benefits and the downsides of both genres. And Sarah is not a smut girl. She's not really a girly anything. So she also told me a couple weekends ago, I'm not a girly. So I'm not allowed to use that term.
If you were 17, sure. 12, absolutely. Maybe even like 22, 25. But after that, no.
I'm still in my 20s. Let
No.
me be a girly until June
Yeah,
when
you're
I'm
only in
30.
your 20s for another, what, 8 weeks, if that?
Literally. I'm practically 30.
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
So we are going to talk about why so many people are reading self-help and smut. maybe at
Mhm.
the same time, and highlight the contrast. So, boundaries and healing, obsessing over chaotic fictional relationships. I wish Cassie was on for this one, man. This would be such a good one for her to be here for. And really, a big question is, are we trying to grow or are we trying to escape? And Sarah has some interesting takes on that one. And what if both are the same thing in different ways?
Mm.
Maybe you can accept that, Sarah.
We'll see.
So, Sarah, how would you define a self help book?
I don't know that there's any one definition that I would use. I mean, if we're talking in like the self-help books that they talk about on QVC where they're like limited time only 9 payments of 137.99 and you get this workbook.
I don't think we're
Um
talking about those.
I mean, the definition of self-help is finding resources to be able to learn and understand and help yourself grow, help yourself process, help yourself move on. But I don't know that that is the only way I would describe it, I guess, at the end of the day, because I don't think just self-help can be self-help books. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think there are other genres that you can pull in and say, even though this wasn't labeled self help, it doesn't mean it isn't a piece of helping somebody grow or process and do all of those things.
I mean, that's fair because I think you can find messages in all books. And
Yeah.
really, a self help book, like you said, is
Hmm.
supposed to help you grow and change. And
Hmm.
really, any book could fall into that category.
Yeah.
But self help books like Atomic Habits is a really big one that's like all over the shelves
Hmm.
right now. I haven't
Hmm.
read it,
Hmm.
I don't know much about it, but
Hmm.
just like the focus of habits, mindset, relationships,
Hmm.
healing, like I feel like those are kind of
Hmm.
the overarching messages in self-help. I feel like I don't really know if I've read a true self-help. I've read a lot of
Hmm.
memoirs
Hmm.
and I've read a lot more clinical books like
Hmm.
The Grieving Brain, Children of like emotionally immature parents, like
Hmm.
books like
Hmm.
that. Shout
Hmm.
out Rick and Beth. I hope my mom listened to this episode. Okay, so now question is how would you define smut?
I mean, how would everybody define smut? It's sex scenes, intimacy that turns into, like, crazy amounts of sex scenes that don't sometimes seem possible, like, both my hands fit around it. "Ma'am, where is that going?" Like, "Really? It's not that's not it, kids. Think about that. Think, like, it's the size of my head." I think they're fantasies. I think they involve physical aspects of all of the range of things. I think it creates a picture in people's heads of, like, "God, that'd be amazing to do that. I should think about that more."
Emotionally intense, often sexual romantic storytelling. That is the official definition of smut. Oftentimes including enemies to lovers, which is a fave of Cassie and I.
Mhm.
Um, Shout out to good old Fourth Wing, which Sarah has
Mhm.
read.
I
Sarah
have
has read
read.
the Fourth Wing
I
books.
did do that.
She has read several of the Throne of Glass books,
Mhm.
but those aren't really smut. Those are just
Mhm.
fantasy. They really don't have any smut in them. Sometimes it's dark romance, sometimes it's fantasy romance. Dark romance is one that we'll get to later.
Mm,
And dark romance has actually come up a lot between Cassie and I. I forget on
mm,
what episode we talked about it, but just the line. Like,
mm,
what are the
mhm,
boundaries? What are the
mhm,
lines? What are the gray areas with dark romance?
mhm,
And we got into conversations about smut books with minors and
mm,
like what the
mhm,
line is there and like are we really creating content that is like super inappropriate.
mm,
Like I remember when book club read Binding 13,
mm,
everybody was like, I had to imagine them at my age because imagining them
mhm,
at 17 and like
mm,
16 was just kind of like icky for 30-year-old women who have like children.
mhm,
um the research shows that people read both because
mhm,
emotional relief, stress coping,
yeah,
identity exploration, and understanding
mhm,
relationships.
mhm,
Self help is more, tell me what to do.
mm,
And smut is, let me feel something.
mm.
Would you say that you agree with that?
Yes, I would because I from all of the people I talk to who read ACOTAR and all of the books that fall into that genre, they're like, "I felt this," or "I, like, processed this," or "I didn't know this about my body until I read the book," where I think self-help can be like, "Here's 10 steps to feeling better."
One of the things I had written down is that smut is very much a like here and now, it helps
Mm,
you feel better in
mhm,
the immediate. And then self help books are more, like you said, like long term, whatever you define as long term, but it
mhm,
helps people grow over time. The good old let them theory, which Cassie
yeah.
did not like. Did you read the let them theory?
I didn't read it. I was going to. It was on my list, and then I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people I know and decided that it was not one I needed to read.
Yeah, Cassie was very much. unhappy about the
Mm.
section where she talks about people being on the airplane, and if they're, like, coughing and sneezing everywhere, just let them, and she was like, "What about people who are immune compromised?"
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
not happy with that.
I could see that.
I mean, I think also too, like, a book like that, at least, and I didn't read it either, but just I think the
Mhm.
concept can probably get into some dangerous territory of
Mhm.
excusing behavior that's really not, like,
Mhm.
okay, and
Mhm.
not addressing things that should be addressed when people
Yeah.
hurt you or make you upset. So, yeah, I didn't read it either. I took it right off my list. I had it on there for
Mhm.
a long time,
Mhm.
long time. I waited for it on
Yeah.
Libby for, like, months, and then when it
Yeah.
finally came in, I got all the feedback, and I was like, "Well, I just waited for
Yeah.
months for nothing." Let's hear your general opinions on smut. What's good smut? What's bad smut?
So here's where I fall. I think at the end of the day, every individual reader has something they need from books. They are looking for something. They're looking to feel something or experience something or be a part of something that lights them up in some way or another, right? And I think the same thing about smut. Like it is lighting people up in ways maybe they haven't. So I also got online and did some research because I'm not screwing around when it comes to scientific facts. And there's a lot of research on there just about how it allowed a lot of different women to start exploring things that they've never explored before, or it's allowed them to become more vocal within their marriage, within their partnership, or just as a person. And I think that that's great. I think that that's an incredible thing to be able to get from a book and go, wait a minute, I am worth it. I am worthy. I am sexy. I am pretty. I am beautiful. And like, damn it, my body deserves some attention because of that. So I think that there is something to that. I think the other side for me is there room anywhere in the conversation for, yes, it does that, but is there a point where it's not doing anything and it's just allowing you to avoid what's
Mm,
going on in your life? And I think I have that take because I am a counselor. And so my entire life is now, what are you doing? What are you avoiding? What are you not? So that has to be a part of it. But I am not a smut reader, as everybody knows I'm not. However, I just read a book that had some smut in it and it felt classy. And let me tell you why. Because the whole book was not centered around it. And I
mhm.
think a lot of the fantasy romance, it's like, hey, this war happened. Okay, let's screw each other. Hey, this war happened. Like both my hands fit around it. Again, ma'am, gee, goodness gracious. Like somebody get her some Tylenol. Like that's really large. And so I think that good smut for me is it flows with the story. It's not
Mm.
the entire story. It's not the backbone of what's going on. And I think bad smut is like, again, her hands are around it and then she put her mouth on it. She did what? How do you open your mouth that wide? Like that's where I struggle and giggle. And
Okay.
that's just me. That's just let me say it to everybody, just me. If you read it and you love it, I love that for you. We all have our things at the end of the day.
There was a book that I read back like 2 years ago, and it's in the Icebreaker series.
Mm,
I never read Icebreaker itself, but I skipped to Wildfire, which was the second one that she released. And this is a great topic for you and I because we both come from summer camp. We were both summer camp
mhm,
kids and summer camp
mhm,
counselors. And I was like, okay, going into this book, obviously they were two summer camp counselors
mhm,
and it was excessive. Like
mhm,
we
mhm.
were having sex any opportunity we got. We were walking into cabins and like, "I'm gonna take you right here." Like, now, like, listen, there's some validity to that, but, like, not with, like, children just wandering around during the day. Like, nobody is bending over bunk beds, like, while children are out playing. Like, well, I wasn't at least.
Mm,
But I think that those books where it's just like that is the purpose of the book. Like there's obviously a
yeah,
storyline, but like every couple chapters, it's sex. Every couple chapters, we're like slipping it in on the side of the building. Like I think those are the ones that I struggle with. But it's interesting. Well, you've never read Akatar, but like I know
yeah,
you've heard us talk about it.
yeah.
So from hearing us talk about it,
Mhm.
what convinces you that it falls into the unnecessary smut category?
Hearing you all talk about it, that's what
So like
convinces
give me the
me.
highlights.
Because all I ever hear is violence, war, sex. Male character who has the abs of steel. Violence, war, sex. Violence, war, sex. When's the next one come out so we can figure out what happened in the war and if this person gets with that person and then they come back and they have a new war because violence. And that's like I've never heard you guys talk about anything else when you talk about Akatar other than those things.
That's
And
fair.
that's not violence, war, sex. Like I read Fourth Wing 100%. I did it. I've read
Yeah.
all of them.
So
I
what was
just yeah.
did you approve of the smut in that series?
It didn't feel like it was the center part of the story. It didn't feel like it was too much. So, that's how I
So
feel about it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
there are some books in the ACOTAR series that I would say center around smut. And I think, unfortunately, online
Mhm.
has also made the smut the center of attention. Like, that's
Mhm.
all anybody, like, talks
Mhm.
about, like, with
Mhm.
Court of Silver Flames, which is the last
Yeah.
book in the series at this point before 6 comes out in October. There's the put your hands on the headboard scenes and yada, yada, yada.
Mhm.
For me, at least for some of the books, the sex is more centralized than I think an average book, but I
Mm.
don't feel that it was what I completely took from those
Mm.
books. Like, the first one really doesn't have a lot. I mean, the first one I have feelings about, and I've, like, explicitly put those all over the internet, but the first one doesn't have much. I
Mhm.
would say A Court of Mist and Fury, the second one, is probably the one that has a lot. Like, I feel like that's
Mhm.
very, like, focused on them, the 2 characters in that book who are, like, building a relationship, and, like, there's lots of
Mhm.
sex going on. I mean, I don't know, though, because when you look at the breakdown, the 4th book, A Court of Silver Flames, like, there's a lot of chapters in that book that have
Mhm.
smut. I think actually that's the book that has the highest count of smut
Mhm.
chapters. But I think for me, when I read that book and we talked about it on the 5-star reading episode, I think the lessons of friendship and mental health
Mhm.
overshadowed all
Mhm.
of the sex that was in that book. Do I think that
Mhm.
there needed to be that much sex? Probably not. So, like,
Yeah.
I think that there's validity there, but I mean, I liked the smut, so I can't really say.
Well, I also think as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that I didn't know anything about ACOTAR, and then everybody started to talk about it, and
Mm,
all anybody talked about
the sex.
was the smut and the sex, and I was like, "Well, then that's not for me. That's not a thing." I think with Fourth Wing, I made the decision to read it before I heard about it from really anybody else at the end of the day, so I got in early so I could form my own opinions, and I think that's part of it for me is, like, I love to read. I've been reading all since I was, like, I mean, reading chapter books for decades and decades. I love to read. I love my Kindle. And, you know, I think that other people's opinions, because we have such access to them overall on the internet now, like sometimes that just gets in my way. And I'm like, it doesn't sound like anything I'm going to be excited to read. So I don't want to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I think social media ruined some of these things and
Yeah.
overshadowed, instead of it being a
Yeah.
trending book on Book Talk because of the
Right.
message of friendship and
Yeah.
found family and mental
Right.
health and connection, the focus
Yeah.
became sex.
Yeah.
Because it is good. It is well
Yeah.
written. Like, I do think it's
Mhm.
good smut,
Mhm.
but it became too much of the focus, and I think for
Yeah.
people like you, it was an immediate, like, "Okay, I'm out," Like,
Yeah.
this is just too
Mhm.
oversaturated, so I'm not doing
Mhm.
this. I think the one piece that I was gonna bring up about smut is the opportunity that books sometimes have to romanticize control, obsession,
Mhm.
poor
Mhm.
communication, and sex and smut are put in there to exacerbate those things.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's, like, inappropriate. So, like, I'm
Mhm.
thinking of 50 Shades of Grey. Like, we all know
Mhm.
that one. Like,
Mhm.
that I mean, I read the books, I went and saw
Mhm.
the movies, like,
Mhm.
but I think that that very much romanticized control and power,
Mhm.
and I read Haunting Adeline. I don't remember if I talked to you about that one. It was a dark romance.
I don't think
It
so.
was a two-book series, and it
Mhm.
was basically a woman who fell in love with her stalker.
Mm.
And
Okay.
it's very smutty, it's very
Mhm.
aggressive, there's a lot of trigger warnings in the beginning of the book, like, there's
Mhm.
gunplay and, like, there's some
Mm.
really aggressive things that go on,
Mhm.
and for me, that was too much. Like, I think that
Mm.
the smut there, like, romanticized sexual assault for me,
Mm.
and I didn't enjoy, like, that piece. I mean, I read both
Mm.
books, I, like, wanted to know what happened, but I
Yeah.
think some of the scenes I was like, "I don't like this,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that sometimes, like, we toe the line, but
Mhm.
I think some people like that.
Mhm.
And, like, what does that say? Like, that's kind of where I think about things, and
Right.
I don't remember if you heard me talk about the book Tampa before. I've
I
probably
don't
talked to you
think.
about it. Maybe. Basically, it was a book about a teacher who grooms her young boy students, and
Oh.
there are very explicit smut scenes in that, and she's a young teacher, and these boys are in, like, later middle school, and it's like,
Ugh.
that just borderlines for me. Like, I don't think we should be going there. Honestly, I'm surprised
Mhm.
it was published
Mhm.
after reading it and experiencing that, but, like, It Ends With
Wow.
Us is another one that comes to mind. That one
Mhm.
isn't smut, but that's
Mhm.
definitely, like, fantasizing abuse and
Mhm.
control, power,
Mhm.
all the things. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
have thoughts after listening to me yap there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that play and fantasy have a definite place in everybody's intimate relationship at the end of the day. I also think it's about consent and conversations and respect, and what a lot of the books don't do and a lot of movies don't do, because it's not a fun part of the story. It's not going to make people continue to want to be a part of it, is talk about those things.
Yeah.
They just dive in. You know what I mean? Like, I read 50 Shades of Grey. I read all 3 books at the beach in a week when they came out. Like, I all of us were devouring it, but, you watch the movies now and it's like, "Sir, first of all, yes, you're incredibly attractive, but also something inside me wants to, like, punch you in the face." You know what I'm saying? Like,
He needs some clinical mental health counseling.
well, and that's how we start the topic of smut versus self-help, and where there is a line, and what does that line look like?
So, red flags. This is a great transition into red flags.
Yeah.
So, some of the things I wrote down for red flags for self help before I go there, what would be your red flags? As a clinical mental health professional, if you opened up a self help book, what would be your red flags that you would not recommend that book to a client?
That it wasn't written by somebody who has actual degrees and knowledge and research in what they're discussing and talking about.
What is one of the first books that comes to mind for you? I know we did an episode on books that you would recommend as a clinical mental health professional, but what's
Yeah.
like the first book that comes to mind that you feel like falls into the good category, like one that you would recommend?
Probably that maybe you should talk to someone book.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Written by her, about the experiences. Like, I think that that would be a good example of, like, I read it, and I read it after I became licensed in grad school and all of that. And I was like, wow, I took a lot away from that. I see it, I hear it, I understand it, it makes sense. Yeah, I think the biggest red flag is there's a lot of self help out in the world right now that is like based off of people's opinions. And while everybody's allowed to have an opinion, what you're not allowed to do is then put it into print and state it as a fact.
Mm,
And I think that happens a lot.
yeah. The list I had were red flags for self help. Just think positive
Mm,
books, over promising
toxic
transformation.
positivity. Yeah.
So, like the 4-hour work week,
Yeah.
like this is what it should
Yeah.
look like. And this is how you can transform your life. And
Yeah.
the work-life balance,
Yeah.
things like that. Oversimplifying trauma and mental health, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is definitely one that
Yeah.
happens. Repetitive, low substance, but that's with any book. Like, you don't want
Yeah.
anything that's, like, super repetitive.
Yeah.
And then, like, passive inspiration without action was another
Yeah.
one. I don't know if you ever read the book You Are a Badass. So it's interesting because some of the articles that I was reading said that falls into that category of, like,
Mm-hmm.
a book that has some red flags for self-help.
Yeah.
And I see it everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
still on shelves. Like, I think my
Mm-hmm.
mom owned it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just crazy that some of these books are still on the shelves. And I think the point you hit on the best was who wrote it
Yeah.
and what are the
Mm-hmm.
references? Like, where are you
Yeah.
getting your information? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
hate to hate on Mel Robbins for the let them theory, but like, pretty sure it's just your opinion.
Well, there's also a lot of conversation around the actual root of the let them theory and who
Yes.
actually wrote it versus did Mel Robbins write it. And I haven't deep dive into it, but I've
Me
heard a
neither.
lot of things that make a lot of sense to me. And I think that then brings up another topic of self-help versus smut. Things you're talking about is like, when is it an original idea and when is it an idea that you're just making money off of? And do we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at self-help books?
Well, that and that also can go into smut too. Like, I think that's like a
Yeah.
perfect thing, and you can apply in both categories because I
Yeah.
think that as smut and romantasy
Mhm.
have become so big
Mhm.
recently, especially on Book Talk, everybody wants to write smut.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants to put it in their books, and I've read a couple books, like, I remember one that we read for book club, you didn't read it, but it was A Court This Cruel and Lovely, and
Mhm.
I just remember, like, turning the page, and at one point, he just randomly starts talking about her ass, and it's,
Yeah.
like, not it doesn't flow, like you
Yeah.
said, like, there has to be a
Yeah.
flow, it has to make sense, like, the book we were talking about earlier that you referenced was Funny Story by Emily
Yeah.
Henry, and
Yep.
I just actually finished reading the smut in that. I'm not done the
Mhm.
book, but I just finished reading kinda some of the beginning of the smut,
Mhm.
and it made a lot of sense, and it
Yeah.
just, like, flowed. It felt very natural.
Yeah.
So I've definitely read the books where the smut just comes in hot, and also, like, it's not good, like, it doesn't make sense, like, you can tell that
Yeah.
the author and the editors, like, didn't catch, like, someone's hand is here and someone's hand is here, and that, like,
Mhm.
doesn't that wouldn't work, like, if you act it
Yeah.
out. We actually interviewed, an indie author, Christy Wolf, and she writes smut in her stories. And she actually like has her husband like, stand, and she
Nice.
will like when she's trying to write a scene,
Yeah.
like she'll make sure that like she doesn't lose
Nice.
parts places.
Yeah.
And I think that's hysterical. I think that's necessary because
Mhm.
I think a lot of people just like
Yeah.
put it in there and then
Right.
like it's just like not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No. Well, you know, and I think the point, like you said, it just saturates the market. Like, oh, look, this thing made money, so let me do it, and let me do it, and let me do it. And now we're not getting anything that's worth reading. We're just getting sex, 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 control. Hashtag they love each other. End of scene. By the book kind of stuff.
Well, the list for red flags and smut includes romanticizing toxic dynamics, which we kind of touched
Mm.
on,
Mhm.
confusing intensity with love.
Mm.
That's a great point.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I would almost say confusing lust with love. I would
Yeah.
use lust instead of intensity. Poor communication normalized. That's always one. I feel like people all over book talk actually complain about a poor communication
Mm.
trope. Because it's
Mhm.
just stupid, it sucks. Trauma used as bonding,
Mm.
that's another one I feel like
Mhm.
that gets thrown out there,
Mhm.
and actually, the very last one on this list, escapism turning into avoidance.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's funny, some of the examples I brought this book up earlier, but it ends with us,
Yeah.
and that's not smut per se, but it
Right.
definitely highlights romanticizing toxic dynamics.
Yeah.
Credence, which I refuse to read because there's like some weird inner family things that happen. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I won't go there. So now that I've seen it's
Mhm.
on this list. And then unfortunately, sad to say, Cassie, A Court of Thorns and Roses is here. But it kind of falls under the confusing intensity with love and trauma used as bonding because
Yeah.
when the main character comes into Prithian, the dynamics between her and the person that she originally gets involved with when she gets to Prithian, not great, very controlling, very not cool. So while I love the books, there are elements of romanticizing toxic dynamics in that book. Like I just at the end of the day remember it's fiction and I'm like this isn't real. Like I have to remind myself that. But fortunately, I think we live in a world where everybody just throws themselves in and forgets that
Mhm.
reality exists. Well, this is a good last point to end on. So, obviously, big picture insights, both genres address loneliness, emotional overwhelm, desire
Mhm.
for change, relationship confusion, lots of different things. But I think a key contrast that I had pulled out is smut is feeling your way through experiences,
Mhm.
and self-help is more thinking your way through experiences, like
Mhm.
almost right versus left brain. Like the
Mhm.
self-help taps into the logical
Mhm.
goal setting
Mhm.
mindset, and then smut is
Mhm.
that pure creativity, romance, lights up the brain in all areas
Mhm.
because obviously we know sex does do that. What do you feel like that growth truly requires?
I think it requires both. I think this is why self-help is so liked and well known and people flock to it because it's logical. If I do this step, and this
Mm,
step, then I can ignore all of my feelings. I can ignore all the processing that needs to happen, whether, physical, mental. If I just do these 5 things, if I get up at 5 a.m., if I journal at 6 a.m., if I eat this breakfast, if I run this length, you know what I mean? If I sit and think this thing, then that's enough. And I'm
do you think that the people who go into self-help books and swear by what they learned and like that they applied everything the book told
Mhm.
them to. Do you think that it genuinely did do its job and there's some validity there and it worked for that person? Or do you think that they convinced themselves that it's working?
I think it does work for everybody because everybody knows how to follow steps. Everybody
Mm,
knows how to make physical changes and schedule changes. What people don't know how to do is let themselves be sad and
mm.
then talk about that with somebody else and be vulnerable. What people don't know how to do is manage when they're so angry they don't know what else to do other than throw things and scream. What those books don't do is say you got to lean in and be really, really uncomfortable to
Mm,
actually heal and be okay. What they do though is, oh, I did all the steps, I did it. Check.
mm.
Plus for me, I got it. I'm in. And that's not to say that there isn't validity to that for a lot of people, 100%. However, I think that a lot of them just fall short of some of the emotional processing that needs to happen. And that's why they're so successful overall, is because that doesn't tend to be a part of it at the end of the
Well,
day.
it's funny because I pulled 3 bullet points of what growth requires and I wrote number one, feeling, number
Mhm.
two, reflecting, and number
Mhm.
three, applying. And
Mhm.
I think that what you highlighted is that a lot of self help books just skip to the application stage.
Mhm.
They don't
Mhm.
address that you have to feel and then
Mhm.
you don't have to reflect on that feeling. People are just skipping to here are the behavior changes that you need to make and you're
Mhm.
good to go.
Mhm.
I think there's validity in good smut, well written smut.
Mhm.
And I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but kind of falling under the feeling category of I think
Mhm.
some smut can really make you feel and really can tell a
Yeah.
story and can bring up emotions that
Mhm.
help you heal. Like in relationships, like I have a couple friends who said, reading smut changed their marriage and
Mhm.
their dynamics in the bedroom because it
Yeah.
taught them to open up and be like, hey, I read this thing and I really liked it. Can
Mhm.
we try it? And then
Yeah.
but I think obviously looking into how to do that
Mhm.
safely and with consent
Mhm.
and all the things is important.
Mhm.
But I think smut falls into sometimes possibly growth and feeling. So they kind of intertwine with each other.
They do. I mean, I would agree with what you said. I'm not a smut fan. Everybody knows that, but it doesn't mean that there isn't something in them that isn't helpful to women, that doesn't allow them to feel and then be vulnerable and go to their partner and say, this is what I would want. This is what I need. And their partner goes, okay, great. Let's get it done. This is fantastic. I think the feeling allows them to open up and be more vulnerable. And there's power in that vulnerability for them. And that's what changes the marriage and the things that go on in the bedroom.
So Cassie and I always play a game. So we're going to play a game before we
Okay.
go. We're going to call it smut or self help, basic. And I'm going to read a statement and you decide where it belongs.
Okay.
The interesting part is some of these are actually harder to tell apart than you think. So
Okay.
you'll have to tell me. I don't know. You're pretty smart, so maybe not. So, item number one or statement number one is if someone wanted to, they would never leave you confused. Is that more of a smut coded mindset or is that more of a self help mindset?
If someone wanted to, they would never leave you confused.
Correct.
I'm confused by the sentence structure of what was just said. Maybe that's just me. Self-help?
Technically smut coded. So the
Wow.
logic behind this
Okay.
is emotional certainty. So like
Okay.
if someone wanted to, they would never leave you confused. Like in a relationship, they
Right.
would show up authentically and tell you what they're looking for. They would never leave you in the dark. They would never leave you
Yeah.
guessing. They would show
Sure.
up authentically, but this is saying that it's very smut coded in the sense
I
of
should have
that
known by the sentence structure. I should have known
should have
it
known.
wasn't
It threw you
self-help.
off. It threw you off.
It did.
Item number 2 or sentence number 2, I don't know why I'm saying item. Your habits shape your entire identity.
Self-help?
Yes,
Yeah.
obviously linked to behavioral
Yeah.
psychology and
Mhm.
identity
Mhm.
formation.
Sure.
Okay, statement number 3, the right person will feel like home, not chaos.
That's smut. Yes? No? I don't know.
Actually,
No.
there
I'm
could be an
terrible at this
argument for
game.
both. So this one's kind of a
Okay.
trick.
Okay.
So why did you originally say smut? I'm curious.
Because I feel like I've read it somewhere before. Like I've read the line in a book somewhere, and it sounds like something that would have been said in Funny Story, so I was like, "Maybe
Okay.
that's where she got it from." So,
No. So emotional home as romantic destiny, obviously,
mm,
and then self-help, attachment theory language.
wow, we love a theory.
Um, yeah, this is where the lines start to blur,
Okay,
because things
great.
can fall into the same.
Great.
All right, got a couple more. You attract what you believe you deserve.
I could go yeah, because I've heard self-help people be like, "You attract what you believe you deserve. You only fall in love with people who you think you deserve and not deserve you." It could go either way.
Which would you pick?
Self-help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nicely done.
Yep.
This one's very obvious. If you don't get this one, I'll be shocked. He was dangerous, but she couldn't stay away.
Send help.
I think that's what you're talking about. Like those
Yes.
kind of statements, like
Yeah.
romanticizing the intensity and the risk and just like, oh,
He
he was
was
dangerous,
dangerous,
but
but
she
she
just
wouldn't
couldn't
stay
stay away.
away. Is he wearing, like, a leather jacket with a white t-shirt under it, lots of grease in his hair? Is
Yeah.
he, like, in the mob? Where are we going with this?
Does he have wings? All right, two more. Next one is you can't heal in the same environment that made you hurt.
Self-help?
Yes. Um, so final statements, and I'm curious to see how you feel about these. So self help
Okay.
teaches us what healthy love should look like.
I don't think that's true.
Tell me why. Because I don't agree either.
Because you can't understand what healthy love looks like from a book.
Yeah.
That's why.
Where do you find the tools for healthy love.
In therapy and having good relationships and knowing how to create boundaries and having people around you that have good relationships. And if you don't have that, you don't have access to therapy or things like that. Sure, it makes sense that you pick up some books so you can figure out some knowledge, but I don't think all of the knowledge about what a healthy relationship is can come from a book that you buy at Barnes and Noble.
That's fair. And Smut shows us what love feels like, even when it's not healthy.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Although it should say because it's not healthy,
Yeah.
not even when. Shows us what love looks like because it's not healthy. And then people read it.
I think this is a great point. Our brains don't always separate those two cleanly.
Yeah, I mean, I think our brains don't separate a lot of things cleanly, so it makes sense that it's like, "Oh, I felt something from this book, so it helped me," or like, "Oh, I did steps 1 through 4, and now my life has changed because I drank that energy drink that they sold me online, and my whole life changed." That's yeah, yep, my whole life changed because of that drink. It's amazing.
It's just not as simple as everything makes it seem.
Yeah.
So, out of things like comfort, escape, insight, change, all the things we talked about, what do you actually look for when you read?
I am really into the story of the people in the book. I want to know who they are. I want to know a backstory. I love a series. I've talked to you about it. My dad and I read this author. His name is CJ Box, and he writes about a game warden out west. And the reason we got into it is because I lived out west for a long time. He has now written like 25, 26 books, but about the same guy in the same family. That's what I want. I want to see you develop and go. I also want to connect to the story in some way. You know what I mean? Like be lost in the book. I want to get lost in a story. I want to get lost in a world that I can create in my head. Those are the things I look for.
Yeah, I don't often read self-help or the more clinical or
Yeah.
the clinical psychology books. Once in a
No.
while, like I said, I get a hair up my ass, but not often. Like
No.
I'd much rather escape into a
Yeah.
story. And I think
Hmm.
what I look for in a book is, I guess, not escape. I don't want to use that word. I want to come out of it feeling like I took away something valuable from it, like a
Hmm.
lesson
Hmm.
or a quote or something. I
Hmm.
really want it to touch my soul. Like I
Hmm.
really want to find something in it that is really beautiful.
Hmm.
And maybe healing. Like I look for healing in some
Hmm.
facet in the books that I read.
Yeah.
I think that's why, like, even though A Court of Silver Flames is in the ACOTAR series
Hmm.
and there's lots of feelings around that book, I did from that take healing,
Yeah.
and I appreciated that. And then the pieces of the series that I didn't take healing from,
Yeah.
probably why I didn't like the book
Yeah.
or really
It's
connect with
fair.
it, because
Yeah.
that one was probably the one and only in that series
Yeah.
that I really connected with.
Right.
All the other ones were just fiction. I got to just
Yeah.
escape and
Yeah, that's fair. I think grad school ruined the, like, read the clinical things, and it's not that I
mm,
don't do that, I just do it more geared towards the work that I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I read a lot about the disorders that I'm helping people through and stuff like that, but, like, to pick up a book that could be clinical and self-help, I'm doing that 8, 9 hours a day already. I don't wanna come home and continue that. I wanna get lost.
I feel like I often will pick up a self-help book if it has to do with my own healing. When I lost my grandpa back in
Yeah,
September, that's when I picked up The Grieving Brain and I started listening to
yeah,
it because I wanted to better understand myself. I think that's what I
yeah,
look for in a book. Can I
yeah,
take something away from this book that helps me better understand myself? So I would highly recommend that. And I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a self-help book.
yeah.
I think that I don't gravitate towards self-help, I gravitate
Mhm.
towards the books that are going to, like, give me knowledge. I
Mhm.
wanna actually
Mm.
know that I'm getting it from somebody who is certified or
Mhm.
is knowledgeable based on a degree that they
Mhm.
can say, "I did this research," or "I participated in this program," or "I
Mhm.
ran this study, and this is what I saw."
Mhm.
I wanna know that it's
Mhm.
coming from peer-reviewed sources. I
Yeah.
think that unfortunately, when you go get a degree and you go to grad school, it just ingrains it into your head.
Yeah.
Undergrad's a
Yeah.
little looser. Once you get to
Yeah.
graduate school, they're like
Mhm.
research, 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 research. You just like never hear the end of it. I think, and I was going to end the episode with favorite self help and smut books, but you really haven't read true smut. But what would be your favorite self help book and your favorite as close to smut as you could get?
I think the smut one would probably be Fourth Wing. I think that's a
Okay.
s yeah, or
What
that
did it about the
series.
smut for you in that?
I just think that it made sense in the story, it made sense in the timeline, it made sense in the characters. It wasn't like 2 pages in and they were like, "Oh my god, his wings spread, and again, her both of her hands fit," like, "What? Y'all, what are we
Feel
doing?" I don't know that it would qualify as a self-help book, but so my first year as a summer camp counselor was '99. It's the year I graduated from high school. Hashtag yes, I'm old. And that summer, I met a lot of people. You know how camp is. You make friends, and I became friends with a gentleman named Mike, and he kind of became like a friend and a mentor and a guide. He was just like this lovely, lovely man. And the next summer, we had been talking about this book a lot called Tuesdays with Maury.
I have been seeing Tuesdays with Morrie
Yeah.
everywhere on Bookstagram. My mom
Yeah.
bought some copies. I am
Yeah.
very curious.
So it came out a long time ago, and it's a story about a professor named Maury, and basically the end of his life. And one of his
Mm,
students comes back and interviews him through the end of his life. And it's I remember reading it for the first time and just being like, I've never thought about anything like that. You know what I mean? Like 19-year-old Sarah was shocked by a lot of what I was reading. I mean, we're talking 25, 26 years, so you have to keep that in mind when you read it. The
yeah.
world was vastly different back then. And so, yeah, I think that would be the one that I go back to. So that's one that sat with me. Sometimes I'll go back and find quotes and I'll use it in counseling sessions with
That's
people when
cool.
we talk about different stuff. And so that would be a big one
It
for me.
reminds me of, and I haven't read this book, but it's on my TBR to read. It reminds me of a book called Briefly Perfectly Human.
Mm,
I believe that's the title. And it's basically a book about getting real about the end and about
mhm.
death and,
Mhm.
kind of working yourself
Mhm.
through that. So I wonder if it's like
Yeah.
the modern version of Tuesdays with
Mhm.
Maury. I don't think mine would per se qualify as self
Mhm.
help.
Mhm.
I think my top recommendation in ish this area or a book that I really took something away from that I could really apply to my life was probably Signs by Laura Lynn Jackson.
Mm,
I read that after I lost my daughter
mm,
a couple months into the loss,
mhm.
and I really enjoyed just like learning a new way to look at
Mhm.
death and
Mhm.
what a relationship with people who die can look like.
Mhm.
So I really like her books, specifically that one really hit home. And then Smut, I mean, I want to say probably the Crescent City series.
Mm,
I really enjoy the smut there. Now, here's the thing with that though. I don't think that a lot of the smut scenes are smut. Like
mhm.
in the
Mhm.
beginning it is building their relationship and it is
Yeah.
connecting them. Because he comes from a lot of trauma, she comes from a lot of trauma, but it really is just like smut for smut's sake. I would
Mhm.
say probably the first smut I read that really felt like it flowed was some funny story that I'm reading
Mm,
right now.
mhm. Mhm.
It
Yeah.
just came out of nowhere, and it just slid right in the story, and I was like, "Wow,
Mhm.
that was, like, really sexy." Like, I liked that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I would say that that one would be one that I would suggest to
Yeah.
check out because it doesn't focus on the smut, and Crescent City
Yeah.
doesn't really either, but, like, it definitely focuses much more than Funny Story.
Yes. Never
So
read Crescent City. I don't think I ever will, but I believe you.
so
Yeah.
the last one is like my 6-star read now. Like it
Mhm.
kind of overdid A Court of Silver Flames for me. And by like not much. Like when I say they're like stacked, like real close next to each other,
Mhm.
I think I was able to take healing from that, from
Yeah.
the overarching
Yeah.
life lesson that came from that book.
Mhm.
So yeah, thanks for yapping with me tonight since Cassie and I didn't have a schedule that worked. I'm sad that she couldn't be here for this conversation. She would have really had some things to add, especially about Akatar, because she always says it's just her personality at this point.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody listening, Cassie has offered me money to read the ACOTAR series, literal cash to read the
She
series.
offered you $20
So,
per book and you
yep,
responded with $100 per book. Nice
that's
try.
right. I'm gonna listen. If I'm gonna read these books, I want to make some cash.
Do you remember the day that we were on FaceTime and in the background you could hear Cassie's husband Andrew yelling at her when we called her out for offering you money? And he was in
Yes.
the background. He was like, "You did what?"
What? Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But I
Yes.
think what's really funny is that if she wasn't so hard set on it,
Yeah.
there might have been room for you to try, but because she's now so hard set on it, you have now
Never gonna
committed
do it.
to,
I'm not. It's
"I'm
never
not
gonna
doing it."
happen. It's never sorry, Cassie, it is never going to happen. It's not. And I love that you love it. We all have our things. We all have our stuff. that makes us a little bit ridiculous. At the end of the day, I have my things, don't fret. But now that I know that it's like all in for her, this is 12-year-old stubborn Sarah,
Yep.
throwing down, going, absolutely not.
Mm. Yeah, I
Mhm.
experience her often.
That's that's right, you do. Because I'm great. I add value to your life, just like the books you read.
That's a great ending quote for you on this episode.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I always do our outro, so this isn't as weird. But if you watched this episode and you enjoyed our conversation with special guest Sarah, you should check out the other episodes that contain Sarah. We did the 5-star book
Mm.
episode with her, and then we also did her book recommendations as a clinical mental health professional. I actually have some of those books on my TBR that I eventually need to get to. So, yeah, subscribe, comment, share, all the things. We appreciate it. With that, stay cunning, stay brave, and remember, you are your own high lady. Bye, guys.